I did a little lap today out there. It was only like 2 miles.
Where did you go? Just kind of...
Yeah, I go right out the hotel and then drop down into that little town.
All right, Ryan, so this has been a long time coming that we wanted to do this.
I know. Thanks for your patience.
Yeah. Obviously we talked, it's like 6 years ago or so, right?
Something like that. Yeah.
So that was the first time we met. And then I was trying, like almost every year, I'd say, it's about time to ping Ryan. And you're like, yeah, maybe. And then something would happen, just wouldn't happen. So now we're at THU again together. So I got your attention.
Yes.
So you're here. And I think, we were discussing this. This is probably like fate that this is the right time for you to come on the podcast, because there's a your life has gone through this cycle that you can tell us about.
Yeah.
But before we do that, let's get into your past so that people know a little bit more about you. I've obviously seen your presentation a couple times, but I'd love people to hear that story. So what is your origin story? Where did you start?
Career-wise, right? Yeah.
Or no, just your interest in art and drawing.
Oh, yeah. It's always been there ever since I was a kid, little kid. Just always wanted to draw.
Yeah.
Didn't know if it was going to be animation, comics, or what. I just liked drawing, and I never even questioned doing something else. I never thought, well, maybe I'll try marine biology or something like that. It was never. It was always just draw.
Right.
And but no, and I got really fortunate to have that strong passion at a time when the animation industry was booming, the mid '90s. Mm-hmm. There was this, DreamWorks was ramping up, Warner Brothers was ramping up, Disney was expanding, So I was really fortunate to be there at that time when that was happening. So I got into Warner Brothers there when I was, early 20s. Mm-hmm. And yeah,
as a 2D animator, right?
As a 2D animator, yeah, hand drawn, flipping papers.
Old onion skins.
Yeah, the old fashioned way. And that was fantastic. That was, I feel so fortunate. Really good mentors, great people, And just over the course of, almost 30 years now, I've just gone from doing animation to storyboarding and storyboarding for live action.
What were some of the films you worked on at Warner Brothers?
I did, like, Space Jam was the first one.
Okay.
The Iron Giant.
I love that movie.
Yeah, it's a classic.
It wasn't well received. It became a cult classic much later, though.
It did. It was funny. We all knew it was a great movie. Everyone that worked on it, the studio knew it was a great movie. But there was a weird sort of tension between, the animation, the studio part that we were doing, and then the Warner Brothers lot.
Okay.
I think what had happened is they tried to sort of change the course of the film a few times, and Brad Bird was like, no.
Right.
And so when it came time to release it, they just didn't put much effort into marketing it at all. And I still remember the $8 million opening weekend.
Right.
For Iron Giant. That's what it was. $8 million.
That's
It's a crash.
Right.
And I remember the solemnness in the studio. Everyone was so heartbroken,
Right.
That it just came and went through the theaters that fast, and no one even really noticed. Yeah. But then over time, because it's such a good film, it had legs, and it picked up and it picked up and it picked up, and now it's got it's a classic. A classic.
Yeah. Which is awesome.
So sometimes classics take time, for whatever reason they don't launch. But when it's really good quality, just give it time.
Yeah, it's a good story too.
Yeah,
it's a really good story.
Yeah.
Is that the kind of stuff that you like doing? That's the kind of stories you like?
Yes, for sure.
Right.
Yeah. The Iron Giant. It's a mix between like science fiction and just childhood wonder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
So that was a really great early film to be a part of and be a part of that team.
Yeah. And you were doing then you're still doing traditional 2D animation for that.
Yeah.
Right? And you continued doing 2D animation also for yourself on your own, right?
Yeah, for a few more films, I did 2D animation, and then the whole industry started changing, and 2D animation, became dead. It
After Toy Story, right?
Yeah, pretty much. It just dropped off, and so if you were in the industry and you were a 2D animator, you had to either evolve or become a hairdresser.
Right.
Do something else. And so I still like to draw. I mean, I've dabbled around a little bit in 3D at the time, but it really wasn't, I didn't enjoy the process of it. And so I did storyboards at that point and started getting into that.
How do you make that shift to storyboards?
Yeah, again, right place, right time, got lucky, I can easily say that because I was doing, I learned, when I was at Warner Brothers, I learned how to do some animatics. So go into After Effects and then learn how to take the storyboards, and I started helping out other teams at the studio, like the guys working on Batman Beyond stuff, because I knew After Effects. I kind of picked that up.
Sure.
And then so they started giving me all these animatic jobs to do, some Tom and Jerry stuff, some Looney Tunes stuff. So animatics became a thing, and then when a bunch of the guys at Warner Brothers left to go work for Sam Raimi to do Spider-Man.
Right.
I was the animatic guy. So, and then after doing purely animatics for a film, then I became a board artist after that.
Okay.
So yeah, it's just really coincidental, and I was obviously just always full of yeses,
Full of yeses?
Yeah.
You didn't turn things down?
Yeah, I turned nothing down.
Right.
Yeah, even if I didn't know how to do it.
Right.
That's
the best yes.
I still remember when they asked me to do some animatic stuff the first time. I had never touched After Effects. And they said, "Can you do that, come on in and do some animatics?" And they said, After Effects, right? And I'm like, oh, yeah. And then showed, that evening I was just crunching to figure it out, and then just faked my way through it until I knew it.
Yeah. I think those are the kinds that are the best. I remember one of my first jobs at DD, and my supervisor asked me to do something, and I realized I didn't know how to do it. And I finally fessed up, and I said, I don't know how to do that. And he looks at me and goes, neither do I, but I think we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
And so that's the best way to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very stressful doing it that way. You freak out, and you have, the stress goes through the roof.
Right.
I did that also with Maya when they asked me to do, I was doing boards, and they said, "Can you just do that in 3D now?" Yes, I can, and I had no idea how to use Maya. No idea. I had to figure it out real fast.
Yeah, amazing. So that became it. You just sort of added tools to your arsenal as you needed them, right?
Yeah, really, as I needed them, and as my interests were pointing those directions too.
Right.
It's when you're surrounded by so many creative people and artists in different disciplines all the time, you can't help but just have that feeling like, oh, I want to try that.
Sure.
I want to try that, and I want to try that. And I always had that driving me, that wonder and that interest, and a little bit audacity.
Sure. Well, explain the life of a storyboard artist a little bit to some of the people that may not know what that's like and what that is.
Yeah, as a storyboard artist, you're basically step one in the visual blueprint of a film or a production. Step one, meaning.
So you have the scripts.
Yeah.
And you start, and then you create the visual, the first hint.
Yeah, I mean, I shouldn't say step one because actually there's probably some concept art that was done or something like that, right? But as far as doing it in shooting boards or in something that's really representative that's going to represent the movie, right? So sometimes it's on script pages, sometimes it's just a note or two, and sometimes it's just a verbal briefing, from the director.
Right.
And they say, hey, can you do this? Can you take our character and have him go blow up a restaurant?
Right.
Go, and then you just go and sit down and you start drawing it out, and you got to start thinking almost like a comic book artist. You got to start thinking about the staging and the setting, and think about your shots and your setup shots, your close-ups, your varieties, all that kind of stuff. You really have to be a DP, a director of photography.
And do you know photography? Did you know a lot of photography at the time, or?
I knew the basics of photography.
Sure.
But almost with every lesson that I've learned, I learned it the hard way.
Right.
When a DP would come in and see my boards and go and look at it and go, I don't use that lens. And then he says, I want to, and he throws out a number,
Right.
And that's when I was like, what does that mean?
Right.
Or the director goes, no, we need a short lens there. This has got to be a short lens.
Right.
And I'm like, what does that mean? So I had to learn, the difference between, lenses. And when you do, your brain goes like, oh my goodness, it's a massive difference.
Right.
When you learn lenses, it's like, wow.
Right.
You can really change the feel and the mood of just about any shot just by changing up the lens.
But you're basically giving the DP, like, here's what the shot's going to be.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. And if you know those, if you know what it does to any shot, you can now start to do your drawings to reflect that.
Right.
Like if I know, like, I want to get a real short lens because I want this massive depth, between the character and whatever's in the background. I want visually to be able to know that, wow, there's a lot of space there. So you go for a really, really short lens, you know, which basically all it's doing is giving you more.
Very wide.
Yeah, on the screen. Versus, using a super long lens, of that same shot.
Compresses everything.
Compresses that space like crazy, creates the illusion of, that there's hardly any space between the two, changes the whole meaning. But now I draw it that way.
Right.
So that a DP will look at it and go, okay, yep, I see what lens we need to use for that shot.
Sure. Sure. And most, storyboard artists, they just do the boards. But remember at your talk, you're like, my boards turn to animation pretty darn quick.
Yeah.
So you just like, you can't help it. It's like, I gotta see that motion. I gotta do it, right?
Well, especially when it's action oriented, and it's an action that could be really cool.
Right.
And like if it's a kid skateboarding down a hill, it's like, oh, but if I could do a couple of drawings and it would show the kid skateboarding down the hill. And then when it goes to animation, the animator will do their thing. But what if I did a whole bunch more and did a kick flip in there and then all these kinds of tricks? That would just give the animator a lot more ideas of how to do that shot.
Sure.
So it gets exciting just to add some animation into boards.
Right.
And with all the digital tools now, you can do it pretty quick.
Sure.
It's not like having to get out another sheet of paper and then figure out the in-betweens and all that stuff. You can you can just do in-betweens, and it actually doesn't take as much time as most people think when you just add in drawings.
Right. Right. Well, you've worked on some pretty big movies and boarded some pretty big movies. What were some of your favorite ones?
Obviously when the Marvel films were coming out.
Yeah.
Because as a kid, growing up on all of those characters.
Yeah.
Like when the first Thors and the first Captain Americas and the first Avengers and even Spider-Man, they were just absolute fun to be in that universe.
Right.
And
being able to actually like almost make your own comic book of those things, right?
Yeah, yeah. Just to be part of a production, a team that's actually working on Captain America. It's like the little kid comes out.
Yeah.
He gets all starry-eyed and really excited. And so, yeah, those ones were really, really sort of childhood fulfilling.
And that's awesome.
To be able to work on those.
Right, right. And then you also did a bunch of other personal projects too that you were trying to do in between all of that stuff, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I did, Well, for a long time, especially when my kids were little, I was doing lots of little things with them.
Okay.
You know, lots of just fun stuff. You know, we always had almost like every Thanksgiving we did a little film. We made something. You know,
Awesome.
so it started with that, but then it got into you know, more intimate projects that took a lot longer. You know, that was just like me working on it. You know, not necessarily with my kids. Like Thought of You, and then the one that took a lot out of me, which was a really ambitious one, actually, was Bottom of the Ninth, that app that was
it was a baseball. It was like an interactive comic book, right?
Yeah. And there was a super steep learning curve on that for me, because I knew what I wanted to do. I wanted it to be an app, but yet have the illusion of a comic book, but it's playing animation.
Right.
But I had no idea how to make an app. You know, I'm not a coder or anything
Sure.
like that. So I had to get some people to help me out in lots of those disciplines, coding. And then I put in a lot of 3D, you know, the environment is very 3D. So I had to learn a lot of that stuff and learn how to render, and very, very steep learning curve. And that one took a lot out of me.
Yeah. And I know you were mentioning how hard it is to sort of balance all of that stuff. You were talking about balancing, you know, how do you balance your personal life and your work life? And your answer was,
I don't.
Yeah.
Well, I shouldn't say that cavalier, you know. But if you put, I just found that putting enormous amounts of emphasis on trying to balance is almost an imbalance.
Sure.
You know, trying to do it so hard, trying to live life right, you know, every day, every morning, and time at work and then time at home. You'd be sitting there like, you know, looking at your watch, and, you know, you'd be forcing yourself to check out at the right time. And I mean, it would almost, it almost adds more stress.
Right.
When you try really hard to keep life balanced. So what I finally came to the conclusion that helps sort of satisfy my own soul is that I just realize I will always be in a state of correction. Like if I go too far on the pendulum, then I put a lot of effort into balancing it the other way.
Okay.
You know, and then when I get too far that way, then I'll put effort into balancing it the other way. So it's balance is right here in the middle, but I just feel as long as I'm doing this,
right,
then I'm okay.
Right. And it's got to be, you know, this idea of like not understanding which side of the pendulum you're on has got to be really tough. Or it's constantly thinking about that pendulum. Too.
Yeah. Because sometimes, you know, you get like these creative ideas, and when you get a really strong creative idea, you have to milk that moment. You know, you got to stay up all night. You know, because the energy's there. You know, the energy's there, the thought's there. You really want to get it out, and you know that if you go to bed or whatever, in the next morning it might not be there. Right. So those moments will pop up, and I know, okay, I'm gonna do everything I can to like satisfy this idea that I have. But now I think, okay, I'll do that, but then the next day I'll make sure I take a good little break and I go play with the kids.
Right.
You know, just make sure the pendulum is bouncing.
Right. So, you know, one of the things you were telling me is like you had some serious burnout. You had some stuff that really made it hard. So what led to that burnout? What's the things that made that happen?
Yeah, it's happened a couple of times where I just worked too hard and put too much stress on myself to sort of reach as close to perfection, you know, as I could. You know, with the job I was doing, and it reaches a point where my mind just stopped being creative. It just stopped. I suddenly had no desire to pick up the pencil, and no desire to watch a movie. None. All I want to do is go in my garage and play with power tools and invent something, you know, or go like gardening or something, you know, something physical.
Right.
Or for a time, I really just jumped on my bike and started road racing.
Wow.
You know,
Yeah.
because so I mean that happened a few times when I learned I just got to give it time to whatever needed to rest in my head.
Sure.
And then I'll bounce back into it as soon as I can. That happened a couple of times, but I had a really big one in 2019 that accumulated with the family splitting up as well on top of it. So that was a big one. That was a really, really, really big one.
Yeah.
And even I was worried that I wasn't going to come out of it.
Right. It was very emotional.
Yeah. It was. Yeah. I was. I needed a lot of help getting out of that one.
Yeah.
A lot.
So, what were the warning signs that you had that you could, obviously these things happened, and it's a place you don't want to go to again, right?
Yeah.
But there's warning signs that now it's like, okay, now there's the warning sign that I know that if this happens, I won't let it happen, right?
Yeah, that's a good question. Like what would be the warning signs? I have to be careful about just obsession over something,
Okay.
an idea, and making sure it's not. Let me think about that.
Let's ask you this. What
Yeah.
is the difference between obsession and passion?
Well, obsession gets to the point where when you're not obsessed or in that thing, you're existing in some other part of life and you're almost medicating yourself while you're there.
Right.
Because you'd rather be in your obsession. Passion, I think, can be is more healthy. You can be passionate about something. And then as you exit that passion and go exist in life in a normal way, right? It's not miserable.
Right.
And then you can go back to your passion. But I think, I'll be honest. I mean, when it started getting bad was when I would get home at night and I just drank.
Oh, wow.
I couldn't shut my head off.
Right.
And
that was the only way to shut it off.
And that would shut it off.
Right.
I would get home at night. I never drank in the day. I've never ever drank during the day.
Right.
I would, but I'd get home at night and I'd just have a big fat drink.
Right.
And that was my way of medicating, myself to relax and ease up and go to bed.
Right.
And that's. So yeah, warning sign. Yeah, that would definitely be a big warning sign.
Yep, I hear you. So you got to a point where we were talking this about with Claudia, right? How she finds a way to rebuild pottery.
Yes.
But she doesn't do it the way we used to do it, which is to put super glue and make sure you don't see the cracks, right?
Right.
So it's like, oh, mom won't know that I dropped this pot, right?
Yeah.
Like she does it in a very interesting way where it's rebuilt, it regains a purpose or maybe gains a new purpose.
Yeah.
But the cracks become the stronger part of the vase.
Yes.
And become the feature of the vase. How do you feel that that's a journey that you went through as well?
Oh my gosh. When she talked about that, and I immediately associated that process of embracing the breaks like that to myself, to my soul,
Sure.
Not to a piece of art, but actually to me, it really, really helped me start to think to myself, I shouldn't try to hide some of the breaks, because maybe those breaks that I had could be beautiful to someone else. But that's really hard to still for me to totally talk about.
Sure.
Because the breaks were, the big break was powerful. I mean, I think I mentioned upstairs, I I woke up in a hospital,
Yeah.
you know, in Puerto Rico.
Right.
And it wasn't a normal hospital.
Right.
It was a
Yeah.
hospital. And two of my friends, they saw the state I was in, and they knew that I needed to be there for a time. And man, what an eye opener that was.
Yeah. How do you rebuild from there?
Oh man. Yeah. Again, I got lucky.
Okay.
I don't know if I can put any of the credit on my own shoulders, but I met a beautiful woman that walked me through it,
Yeah.
walked me through rebuilding, and stuck around while I was still broken,
Right.
you know, and helped me to put life back together.
Right.
And now she's my wife.
Yep.
Yeah.
And she's here. She's a
she's
wonderful
here.
person. Very funny too.
Yes.
Yeah. Really great. Really
Yeah.
great.
No, I got, but yeah, I can't say, you know, that was all my own. I can't take credit for it almost, you know.
Well, I think you have to have the will.
Yes, the will was there,
Right.
but if she wasn't there, I don't know what would happen.
Right. Right. I'm sure she felt she had a purpose to do.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, she did. And then when you go through that, it's hard to just bounce back into the way life was.
Right.
You know, it's hard to just, okay, now carry on.
Yeah. Back to drawing Captain America.
Yeah, it's just your whole life has changed. You reevaluate your purposes. You reevaluate how you spend your time. You reevaluate your relationships, and everything changes. And we like to refer to it as life 2.0.
Sure.
Because there's so many things in life that I do different now, even to the point of career. As I was going through all that, I slowly stepped out of the big studio jobs,
Right.
and then did a startup for a while,
Okay.
and then I got an offer to do another big studio job, and I was like, nope.
See?
I can't.
That was your first nose, right?
Yeah. I just thought to myself, that was 1.0.
Right.
You know, I've got to make some choices that are now life 2.0, because otherwise I'd be denying the growth that happened, you know, from 1 to 2.
Right.
And I look at that as like I can't deny that was transformational, and that a massive growth happened there. So I can't go back to just, you know, doing something big corporate, big size again. And so I have this sort of like this surrendering perspective on the future opportunities that are going to come up, where I don't really know what they're going to be and what they are, but I'm surrendering to all these new possibilities.
Well, what kind of possibilities are you looking into?
I've been talking a little bit with some organizations in Australia, Screen Queensland it's called, you know, and possibly doing some filmmaking through those guys.
Yeah.
You know, I've even thought about writing a book, you know. I've even thought about doing more animation for Kat and her brand that she does.
Yeah.
You know, thought about making a game.
Yeah.
And doing it on my own and starting it on my own and then pitching it. So there's so many little things going through my head, but I'm just going to let it work itself out.
That's great. That's great. And so how do you know, one thing that's happening now at this specific conference is that this is a conference, this chapter at least, is about story, right? It's about storytelling. And we have been talking for the last several days about stories and our different ideas of what stories are. You think about story a lot, don't you?
Tons.
Right? Your drawings is your way of telling a story,
Yeah.
right? So what are your thoughts on the state of stories today?
Oh boy, yeah, this whole rabbit hole, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man, It's one of the obsessions that I had really bad, was I trying so hard to really understand the structure of good story.
Right.
And I didn't find it in all the normal books.
Okay.
I thought they were all slices, but it wasn't the big structure, the big picture of good story. It wasn't until I actually started studying more metaphysics and more neuroscience, like how the brain actually compartmentalizes information in different ways and then problem solves.
Sure.
Once I started getting into that, then suddenly I started understanding how I can take that knowledge and apply it to characters and situations and stories. And I felt like, wow, I started seeing more and more and more possibilities of good stories. And but the downside of that is, to answer your question, it's hard for me to watch a contemporary movie these days without recognizing that the story is broken.
Right. What's broken about stories today?
There feels like they're not honoring what the human experience.
Okay.
They're not honoring what humans and how we actually live and interact in this world, and it feels like they are much more just going to proven formulas that have worked. I mean, you just, for example, the hero's journey. You know, it works.
Right.
It absolutely works. You can plug that into just about anything, and you'll get something that works. But here's my big problem with that: is that life is all about unpredictability.
Right.
If I knew what was going to happen to you tomorrow,
right,
in your life, right, that would take the excitement right out of life.
Sure.
Right?
Yep.
If I knew where my life was going to go next year, it would take the excitement out of my life.
Right.
If we go into a story and we sort of can predict the end of the story because we're wired to know this hero's journey formula,
right,
it takes the awe and wonder out of the story because we can predict the end.
right.
So any movie that you can sort of predict the outcome of the movie, to me, is broken because it's not honoring real life. Real life's about unpredictability.
Right.
Right. And that can sound really like out of control and just a complete artsy-fartsy, disastrous movie, right? If unpredictability rules the day,
Right.
right? So it's not so much about like completely off-topic random acts suddenly happen. It's not like that. It's just there is a structure and a science, I think, behind it that guides the mind along and helps helps it feel like a real story.
Sure.
I'm speaking really obscure, but
You're not, because I mean, you and I had this not argument. We were actually in agreement about, Save the Cat for those who don't know what Save the Cat is. It's a book that's written about how to structure a screenplay, and it literally tells you everything that you need to do at every page of the screenplay.
Yeah.
And it goes through the whole process and says, on page 5, this is when you have the revelation, and then on page 60, this is exactly the midpoint, and then, dark side of the soul. Like, it's all formulated for it.
Yeah.
And then you watch a movie, and you're like, oh, wait, yep, 60 minutes in, there's the turning point. And it's just amazing how those things happen, right? And so,
yeah.
And it works.
Yes.
And so for the guys with the money, that's a better return on investment.
Yes.
Right?
Well, it has a provenness to it before it's even released.
Sure.
Right? And again, our subconsciouses, they're the most amazing things because they actually control the conscious mind, and
Sure.
they actually control the emotional reactions to things. And how many times have we gone to a movie where it's this amazing experience, but we walk out of there and we're like, we forget about it the next day.
Right.
And that's typically because the movie was abiding by a formula
Yeah.
that we already know the wiring. We already know, our subconscious knows what's going to happen. Our conscious mind is engaged in the explosions and all the special effects and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But our subconscious goes, okay, yep, now this happens, yep, now this happens, yep, now that happens, yep, okay, end of movie. Right? And then because of that, it doesn't deliver the emotions into our conscious mind that says, wow.
Right.
You know, it doesn't do that.
Yeah.
And so we walk away and we feel like, well, that was worth $5.
I have a good story for you. There's a friend of mine, and he was a big dolly grip, right? And he did dolly grips on some of the biggest movies around, right? And so he was trying to set up a dolly, and it was for Spider-Man, I believe it was. It was a long time ago. And apparently there was a piece of the set that had to be moved, but it wasn't made of foam. That's why they make them out of foam, so you can move them, right? It was made of real stone. It was like they had to get the crane to move it. And he was just like, we're going to fall behind. And everyone was just getting really frustrated and like, how do we get this work? And the DP goes up to him and goes, hey, Greg, don't worry about it. He goes, yeah, but it's like, you know what people are going to say after they see this movie? He goes, what? What do you want to do for dinner? And so it's like, and this is the DP of a major, $200 million film, like, meh.
Yeah. Because you can tell it in the script.
Yeah.
You can tell in the script if they've abided by a formula. And I think that really does separate really, really creative, innovative filmmakers from the corporation of filmmaking.
Sure.
Because the corporation of filmmaking will pick up anything that abides by the Save the Cat book.
Right.
Because they're not necessarily, creative, and so they'll look at a script and they'll find reasons to disagree with it because it's not abiding by their line items of, what's next on this page and what's next on this page.
Right. Yeah.
I often use this analogy, like when someone sees anime for the first time. Mm-hmm. And let's say there's someone that's wired to enjoy Western animation, and so they love, all of the classics, like, Lion King and
Jungle Book.
Jungle Book, Little Mermaid. They love all that stuff, and then they watch something anime for the first time. Mm-hmm. Typically, the first reaction is like, "Whoa!"
Right.
Like I don't get it.
Yep.
And then there's almost this intrigue where they're like, "Boy, but do I want to get it?"
Well, you're still thinking about it.
Yeah, because it's a whole. It broke the wiring that's inside of their mind of what is considered a good animated film.
Sure.
Right. And then they're like, well, they're thinking about it, and they're like, okay, that might be kind of cool. And then they watch another one and another one, and before you know it, they're like anime heads. They're just crazy for it. Yeah. That's typically what happens with, people that see, anime or any sort of genre type of movie for the first time. There's like, do I get it? No, because they're battling the wiring.
Yeah. Yeah, it happened to my son when he watched The Godfather for the first time.
Oh.
Right? And it's like, wait a minute, Michael Corleone is bad, but he was the one that was the sensible person, and he suddenly is the worst of them all.
Yeah.
And it's just realization of that, and he had seen some parodies of it on Seinfeld or whatever, but he never really understood what it was. But then he sees the last shot of the movie where he closes the door and he's like, no! And he was just so upset about the movie because it didn't have the formula, right? Now, he still thinks about it. He still talks about it, right? And so that's part of the journey. And he'll learn to appreciate it.
Yeah.
That's the point. But I think that's the thing that's important. Now, one of the reasons I wanted to bring this up with you is to talk about story is that there's a lot of people out there that are young artists or young people who are trying to create something for themselves, create something, and they don't know where to start.
Yeah.
They don't know where to go. Now, you could say, well, there's a book right here, there's a formula. You can use that. But what is another way for this, especially if you're trying to do something short? Like if you have an idea, how do you take your little idea and turn it into something, right? Like thought of you, right? How did that happen? Like what's the process, the inkling of that process?
Oh, that one I feel like is a one-off. Okay. That one's hard to use that as a sort of a launching pad for any other sort of.
Okay, well let's start with another one, but I don't want to get back to thought of you.
Okay, yeah.
But give me an idea. Say, if some guy is like, I want to do some animation, I want to do something, I don't know where to start. What do I do a thing? Like, what do you suggest for someone like that?
Yeah, I'll tell you, this might get a little science-y.
Sure.
Right?
Well, maybe that's going to be easier.
Yeah, I think it actually does. This is part of some of the things that I learned when I was really studying the human mind. And when most people they want to start with the story. They have some character, right?
Sure.
At least, and sometimes they'll have a character in some environment, but they won't know where to go from there.
Right.
And they won't know how to make that character really become human. But the mind, how our minds actually process data, it's actually you can break it up into 4 areas of our mind. Mm-hmm. 2 of them are temporal and 2 of them are spatial based. Mm. And then 2 of them are objective and 2 of them are subjective.
Okay.
And it works in kind of like a quad. And if you break that down, and that's how our brains like compartmentalize things. So when you put a character in there, you basically end up with motive, method, purpose, and perspective.
Okay.
Motive being the driver, the
Right.
thing that drives you to want to achieve the goal, which is the purpose.
The purpose, right?
Right? The method is the action
Sure.
to get to that purpose.
Sure.
And then perspective is where the learning and the emotions come from. And that's a very, very human side. You can actually program a robot to have motive, method, and purpose.
Right.
But the perspective is the lens you're looking through to judge your own actions.
Right.
Right? So when you, for example, let's just say it's a soldier in the battlefield.
Right.
Right? And his motive, or let's go to the goal. His goal is to survive and defeat the enemy. Right?
Right.
What's driving your character to reach that goal? Letters from his girlfriend back home.
Okay.
He wants to achieve his goal so he can go back home. He gets motivated by the letters from his girlfriend, right? What's his methodology? He digs a foxhole and shoots his gun out of that foxhole.
Sure.
Right? That's like 3/4 of a great character. But the really great part is that perspective part. How is he judging that his actions are actually getting him closer to his goal? And you could break that down, and he obeys orders.
Right.
Like everything, he's one of those soldiers. I will obey orders. But the next soldier next to him has the same, let's say, has the same girlfriend, has the same goal, right? And even does things the same way, but yet the perspective that he has could be anything goes. If I have to break orders to get home, I will do that.
Right.
So now you have 2 different lenses that 2 unique people like judge actions by. And immediately now you have a relationship between these 2 people. Immediately you have a bit of a clash, right? Like what? Like if the commander says, point your gun over the trench and shoot, and the other guy's like, I'm not doing that. I'm gonna get my head shot off. So instead, I'm gonna throw a grenade.
Right.
Right? I'm just gonna throw a grenade. And the other soldier goes, you can't do that. That's breaking orders. So commander said, shoot. Now you have a battle of perspectives happen, and now you have human conflict, a subjective human conflict that's happening around an objective conflict.
Right.
And that's when you start to get into the real great character development that truly enables characters to cross over and then and debate and learn from each other on that subjective level. It's not just like, oh, the gun does this good a job and the grenade does this good a job. Now let's calculate it and see which one's getting there. It's like, no, instead it's a debate over, do we disobey the commander or not? And you have a perspective that's actually creating the relationship.
Yeah. Well, that's a good way to sort of like, if you're gonna, you outline like, what is this gonna be about, but then you figure out those 4 points, and the most important is perspective, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It's where it's where the relationship comes from. It's the debate that 2 people have. the same thing could be said about any issue in the world. It could be, take like climate change issue.
Sure.
One perspective could be, I want the ocean clean, and the other perspective could be, I'm abiding by it just because I want cheaper energy.
Right.
Right?
Sure.
And you could have this really intense debate. They both want the same thing.
Sure.
They both have the same motive. They might even both be doing the same actions to get to their goal.
Right.
But they can have a debate over the lens that they're using to view the issue.
Sure. Sure.
And that's the that's the human element. And it doesn't have to be always a real deep introspective, conversation. You cut to a monologue here and a monologue there.
Right.
It's just infused in their actions and in their body language, and the characters, in my opinion, just feel so much more human.
Right.
When that side is there.
Right. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
I know it sounds sciencey, and it can get really, it can kind of hijack the muse in a way.
Yeah.
But it does also really provide you with a really good framework of your characters.
Sure.
And now you can actually put them in situations, and you kind of know what they would say and how they would feel.
Right.
In different situations. They're walking by their commander. Now you know exactly how one soldier's gonna behave walking by the commander.
Sure.
Now you know exactly how the other soldier's gonna behave just walking past the commander.
Right.
Yeah,
it motivates that action.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Okay. Now, speaking of conflict.
Yeah.
I mean, there was something that you were talking about. I mean, there were, during the conversations part, there was people were asking about how people feel about AI tools and what's going on there. Obviously, there's a lot of perspectives, a lot of ideas. Some people are really, really, really angry about AI tools. By the way, those people have had a hard time even talking to me about it.
Wow.
So it's been hard. But a lot of people have different thoughts on it. And I think the way that someone referred to it in the talk or upstairs was, how do you feel about threats?
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
It's
a threat.
It's a threat. And it's like the implication is like, how do you feel about AI? But that's the implication, right?
Yeah.
So the assumption right off the bat is AI is a threat.
Yes.
When it may or may not be, right?
Yeah.
So what are your
Perspective.
thoughts? Perspective. That's right. Exactly. There you go. So what are your thoughts on that? What are your thoughts about the concept of threat?
Well, I can totally understand why it's perceived that way and why the question would be presented that way.
Right.
I totally see that, because AI tools hit us like a freight train, like
Sure.
so hard and fast. We didn't even have a chance to build up to it.
Right.
All of a sudden, I'm seeing these things
I saw it
online.
coming from a long way.
You did, okay? You were probably more in the know than I
Right,
was.
yeah.
I suddenly saw these images, and all of a sudden, everyone. It was almost like one weekend came, and everyone had a new Facebook profile picture
Right.
that was created from AI.
Yeah.
And then you started seeing AI generated art, and it blew my brain. I was like, what?
Right.
To that fidelity?
Right.
It created it like that. And I even dived into it just to understand it and look
Sure.
at it. I'm like, okay, I'm going to set up an account, prompts, boom. What the hell?
Yeah.
Like, it figured that out that fast? Well, okay, try this. What?
Yeah.
It blew my mind. And I can absolutely understand that being super, super scary.
Sure.
To anyone that's an upcoming artist, an aspiring artist, or and it doesn't even have to be art. AI is stepping into so many other roles out there in the world. But I mentioned this a little bit. I'll just elaborate on it just a little bit more, I guess. But it's not the first time that we've been shocked by a new piece of technology.
Sure.
And our society has had to evolve, or our industry has had to evolve, and
Right.
we had to start finding new ways to be creative. Drawing, let's just take that one for example. Drawing is just one outlet of a creative mind.
Right.
The person that their job is taken away, the artist that draws, if their job is taken away by AI, will more than likely find another outlet to be creative and still be artistically fulfilled.
Okay.
And because AI is not going to go away.
Sure.
There's not going to be some moral police that steps in for the whole world,
Right.
you know, and say, sorry, this is not ethically right. We're going to put a stop to this now. That is not happening, you know.
Right.
It's going to run rampant, and it's going to get used and abused, you know, and indefinitely. I don't even know where it's all going, but
Sure.
I know it's going to get used like crazy, and it will replace jobs. So my perspective is on it like, okay.
Will it replace jobs or will it change jobs?
See, I don't.
I mean, perspective. Right?
Yeah, perspective. I don't know, but I know that it will compel me to evolve artistically in some unique way.
Right.
Some people will give up.
Right.
Some people will just give up their goals or their artistic dreams because they're scared to death of
Sure.
what's going to happen. And others will tackle it like, all right, so how can I evolve artistically ahead of this new thing?
Yeah.
That's so hard to do when AI is moving so fast.
There was an example you used upstairs that was really good, and I said I'm going to steal that from you, but I want you to have the opportunity. It's like when you talk about they go to movies to see conflict, and somehow when there is actual conflict, they don't want it.
Yes.
Right? So tell what's your thoughts on it?
Well, it's a way to sort of, I think it really helps us put in perspective again how we view like our own life, because we love to go to the movies and we love to engage in something that's like an intense conflict with some character.
Right.
And if we're watching a movie and that character is just skating along,
Mm-hmm.
and nonchalantly solving all of its problems, right?
Yeah.
I could bring up a few bad examples.
Right.
Oh, what the hell! I thought Dune was really bad, and because that main character had everything.
Right.
No, he didn't have to earn. And I
Right.
know everyone says, "Oh, but you got to read the books and blah blah." Well, I'm just basing it purely off, the movie adaptation. But if the character's just skating along, solving all the problems here and there and here and there and here and there, and has these huge rewards of, saves the town, saves the planet,
Right.
but the costs and the rewards weren't balanced. We walk out of that movie and we have the same feeling like when we see a spoiled brat. They just
Right.
got given the keys to the Lamborghini just because they were born with the keys to the Lamborghini.
Sure.
And we look at that kid and we go, brat, right? We feel the same way about a movie when the character doesn't have that conflict to come over.
Right.
And but yet in our own lives, we do everything we can to not have conflict.
Sure.
And isn't that a bad story?
Yes.
If our own lives don't have any conflict?
Right.
What are you gonna tell your grandkids or your great grandkids, or what stories are they gonna tell their kids? Oh yeah, Grandpa so and so.
Every time I go to Trader Joe's, there's no traffic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they just skated through life and didn't have anything happen to them.
Yep. Now, I'm going to disagree with you on Dune because I 100% agree with you on Dune, but the problem I have is different because the whole point of that character in Dune is that he actually is a little brat that got everything he wanted. The problem is that they cut the movie in half, and therefore you never get to fruition of that character turning into Michael Corleone, which is what he is.
Yeah.
So that's the problem I have. It's like, I hate the movies that force you to have to watch the next one.
Yeah.
And just give me one movie, 2
Yeah.
hours. Let's do it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
anyway.
Good point.
So that was my
Good
point.
point.
But you're right, though, right? That character, it doesn't make any sense in that cut because you don't get to the next point of it. So
Yeah. I just remember, like, right off the bat, I was like, okay, he disses his mom. Then he has superpowers. He owns his own sensei. He flies a helicopter. He flies a helicopter through a massive storm successfully. This kid, what?
Yep. Yep. It's true. But so that's the thing you're saying. It's like, hey, here we go. We're all in a conflict. There's new AI tools. You have to change. Adaptation. Suddenly, the education you got is not as worth as much money as you paid for it.
Yeah.
And you're going to have to learn new things on your own.
Yeah.
Good luck, kid.
And what a great story that's going to be in like 10, 20 years when we get to sit down in chairs in 10, 20 years and go, remember when we talked about AI?
Yeah.
Remember we were wondering like if it's going to like take the job of an artist? Remember when we were talking about that? Wow. And then we can have a story about, about it.
And all the things that happened in the last 15 or 20 years. Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. That's true. And you can almost then look back on conflict and be grateful for it.
Right.
You can look back on it and go, man, I'm glad that happened because of that, I had to evolve my own life and I had to become somebody different.
Sure.
I had to pursue different dreams. I had to change some dreams,
Yeah.
But because I did that, look at my life now.
Right.
And then you get to have that satisfaction of being grateful for a challenge that came up.
Right.
But in the middle of the challenge, you're never grateful. We just complain.
Sure. 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 All right. The last story I want to talk to you about is about thought of view and like how did that come up? That's a more complex story.
Yeah. Super complex. And it's only been recently that I've started to understand a little bit more of like the purpose of for my life, the purpose of that little film.
Right.
Because it did come, in a very, very abstract way almost, like the desire to create it. I didn't fully understand where all those desires to make that film came from. And I remember getting asked questions. Why are you making this thing? And you're going to make money on it? No. You can use it for promotional stuff? No. Are you trying to get a new position at a new company? No. Are you like what? Why are you doing this? And I'd always say, I don't know. I just don't know. I'm doing it because I really had these ideas and I want to make it.
Right.
And even the story. The story didn't really have. It didn't really have real deep personal meaning either at the time.
Right.
I had sort of associated some of the feelings and some of the conditions when I made it to where I was at currently in life, but it still didn't really carry clarity why I was making it. And then when people would ask me after it was done, they'd ask me they go, oh my gosh, tell us what it means. What does it mean at the end when that happens? When the guy walks away from the girl? What does it mean when their tone changes? What does it mean?
Right.
And I never liked to answer it for two reasons. One, I didn't even know.
Sure.
And the second one is because I didn't deliver an answer to those questions, it compelled the viewer to come up with their own answers to those questions. And then it became a personal piece for them.
Right.
And I never wanted to take that away from somebody by saying, well, this is the actual real meaning right behind it.
Right.
Because then it sort of negates their own personal meaning.
Yeah.
So I would never even wanted to engage. But the truth is I really didn't have much of those answers anyway.
Sure.
And it's been around a while now. The film's been out for I don't know. Or I finished it in 2011, something like that. And kind of forgot about it for a long time. It'd pop up here and there, but I forgot about it. I thought it would just be something of the past. Every now and then it sort of resurfaces, someone with questions about it and whatnot. But when it really, really impacted me is that is how my now wife actually got in contact with me and reached out to me for the very first time. Was she sent me fan mail.
Wow.
She saw it in a cafe on her friend's laptop way back in like 2012 or something like that.
Interesting.
Sent me an email, sent me a little thing, and like I didn't respond.
Right.
Years later, she sent another one, and then I said thank you.
Sure.
You know, and then and once a month or once every 3 months or something like that, she'd have a question about this or that,
Right.
and then I just talked to her a little bit. She just became a really good sort of like email friend.
Sure.
You know, like the old pen pal days. You know.
Yeah.
She was on the other side of the planet, but now when I think about all the conditions that made me put that together, I got to I now understand a little bit more about what was going on in my own heart, what was going on with me relationship-wise, and I was expressing those feelings through that piece without even truly knowing. I was just surrendering to this nebulous sort of inspiration without really knowing where it was coming from, but it did come from somewhere. And it was me reaching out. It was me reaching out relationship-wise for more connection, more human connection than what I was currently in.
Right.
You know, and I was wanting something more in life with a partner, and but I wasn't. I'm not one of those guys where I'm going to go out and be disloyal. I'm not going to do that. But it was the subconscious way of sort of reaching out, and it reached Kat.
Right.
And she's, after our relationship, she's now my wife.
That's right.
Yeah. And now it really makes me ask questions like, is inspiration flat time? Like when you really feel something strongly emotionally and you want to express it artistically, does time condense in a way where you might be expressing something that's solving something from the past, or you might be expressing something that 10 years later is going to manifest the answer to you?
Sure.
Is inspiration really like condensed time? If you take your whole life and just smash it all down, in all that time, and you create something truly from your heart, you have no idea where the impact is going to be because time is flat.
Right.
And it makes me think about stuff like that, and it makes me think, yeah, well, when you're artistically in the zone creating something, time is flat. You lose minutes, hours, days. And so I mean, obviously, this is all like, woo-woo science, But like I say now, don't poo-poo on the woo-woo, because it has manifested in a amazing way in my own life of how listening to deep down and creating something that's truly you truly feel is part of your soul. You just don't know how that's going to impact the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And when you do it honestly and with real intent and with authenticity, it can impact your life in ways that you won't even be able to fathom.
Right.
I probably wouldn't be here at THU if it wasn't for that film.
Yes.
And probably a dozen other countries that I've been to, I would have never gone because, and the people that I've met, the dozens and dozens of people that I've met all over the place because of that film.
Yeah.
The rewards are way more than I had ever anticipated.
Yeah. Yeah. Amazing. Well, I highly encourage people. We'll put a link up on the page for people to see. But where can people follow your work? Where do you have any place where people can see your stuff?
I've just put a ArtStation page together recently because my website got hacked and I have no idea how to get it back.
Okay.
I think it's gone. I think it's hopeless. But so I did an ArtStation account. It's just my name, Ryan Woodward Art.
Okay.
And it's on artstation.com. I got some stuff up there.
Yeah.
The same thing, the same name, Ryan Woodward Art, is my Twitter and Instagram.
Perfect.
So.
People. Well, thanks, Ryan. I really appreciate you doing this, having this great conversation. We've been doing, like I said, we've been waiting a long time.
I know.
It was well worth it.
I hope so. I hope
Yeah,
so.
yeah.
Because it was. It was. We had a hard time connecting all those years, but I'm glad we finally got it.
That's awesome. Thanks, man.